Hey everybody, David Stallo coming at you once again with another Rocky Mountain Rankings. And today we're going to be ranking the albums of Genesis. I'm not talking about the Bible or anything. I'm talking about the rock band Genesis, if you haven't guessed. Very great band. Hit it really big in the 80s. But today I'm not going to be talking about anything from the later catalog. I'll be doing everything from their first album up to Duke. Abacab, and after that, I've listened to those albums, and I just cannot get into them. They're just more poppy. No, don't get me wrong. I like some of the songs, like Days of Confusion and stuff like that. They're not my favorite thing. You know, I know I've said before on this channel, you should go out and regardless of what's been played on the radio a billion times, listen to it. And I've done that. Abacab, the self-titled album, everything like after that. Don't get me wrong, they're good. They're just not for me, and I'm not going to include those here. Like I said, I'm going to include everything up to Duke. I don't have Duke and then there were three. I don't have those two albums. Maybe eventually I'll get them. But anyway, before we get started, please subscribe to my channel. I'd appreciate it. Leave a comment down below. I'd be interested to see what you like, what your ranking would be of Genesis, what you like, your favorite songs, so on. Hit the notification bell, and let's get into it here. A lot of people don't realize, and I didn't realize this until I got into Genesis, that this band started basically in 1967. Now, back when I was younger, I didn't know anything about Genesis. In fact, to tell you the truth, I didn't really get into Genesis till the last 5 years. That's thanks to YouTube and YouTube Music. Again, it's one of those things that, like I said earlier, you hear their popular songs on the radio every single day. Be it Abacab or I can't even think of them. But you know what I mean. Hearing them every day, it kind of makes you leery of anything that came before. It puts that perception in you, makes you have that biased attitude that, well, if I don't like this song that well, like I said, I don't hate these songs. They're okay, but they're just not for me. But you get that perception that if this song's this way and I don't like, everything that came before is going to be like that. But anyway, I decided to delve into Genesis on YouTube, and a lot of their earlier stuff is fantastic. The stuff they did with Peter Gabriel, proggy. I mean, it tells stories. It's awesome. When Phil took over later, he did a fantastic job. It wasn't until, of course, Duke and Abacab that they started to go into the more poppy songs. And I think a lot of people look, know where I'm coming from. They they see that they just don't want anything to do with the Phil Collins era. In fact, when it was announced that Genesis was going to go on tour, that if I remember correctly, they're putting out doing a petition to either stop it or stop album from being released. In fact, I don't think they did an album. I may be wrong. Let me look. Yeah. In fact, I haven't heard anything. Okay, The Last Domino, which I don't think is a new album. No, I believe that's just a compilation album. I do believe Last Domino Tour. Okay. Okay, it's an ongoing concert tour by Genesis. Stage following the announcement of their reunion after 13-year hiatus. That involves a core trio: Tony Banks, Phil Collins, and Mike Rutherford. A lot of people say that they should have involved Peter Gabriel and I hate when I can't remember people's names. Yeah, Steve Hackett. Duh. A lot of people say that they should have involved them, but I guess they weren't interested. I know. I don't think Tony and Peter get along, even because I've seen a couple of interviews with them, and Peter's talking about things, and then Tony goes in, and Tony's like shooting down whatever Peter's saying, and Peter is like looking, sitting there shaking his head like, "You haven't changed, Tony." But so you don't know if there's still a little animosity there between those two. But I'm not going to get into that. So anyway, let's get into the rankings here. A lot of people don't know that the original band consisted of Peter Gabriel, Anthony Phillips, Tony Banks, of course, Mike Rutherford, and John Silver, who was their, and John Mayhew. They both played drums on the first album. There's also, let's see here. Oh no, John Mayhew came in after John Silver. Chris Stewart. He played on some of the earlier album or songs. Then of course, Mike Bernard came in after Anthony Phillips. He developed stage fright and bronchial pneumonia. From that, from stress. So I guess associated with being on stage. Let's see. Mick Bernard replaced him for a while. Then they got Steve Hackett. Ray Wilson did lead vocals from '96 to 2000. I didn't know that. Of course, that's the era that I'm least interested in. But I know Bill Buford played drums for them in 1976 on a tour, just a tour only. Of course, that's after Peter left and Phil became the vocalist. So anyway, let's get into this. There's 10 studio albums I'm going to go over. Like I said, 2 of them I don't have, Duke, and then there were 3. I don't have those. I may eventually get them. You'll see. Okay, starting it off at number 10 is an album that some people get and some people don't. That's of course, a progressive album. It's a concept album. They were released on November 18th, 1974 on Charisma Records. The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. Now, a lot of people, like I said, love this album. A lot of people don't. This is Peter Gabriel's last hurrah with Genesis before he left. He said he was burned out and wanted to spend time with his family. That may be. Maybe other things were going on. Who knows? I don't think... from what I get from interviews I've seen with Peter Banks and Phil Collins and all of them, they come off that like they weren't really happy with Peter. And I mean, if you were in the earlier Genesis stuff and seeing their concerts and stuff, you knew Peter liked to dress up on things, to match the mood and the story behind the certain songs. Like Watchers in the Sky, he come out with a Batwing costume. But in this, he came out with bearish costumes. There's one called Slipper Man. Exactly what it was supposed to be, I have no idea, but it was the most hideous thing I've ever seen in my life. I know Tony and Phil and all them said that was the last straw with them. But, I was listening to this too a little while ago. The songs are strong. They're good. It just, you have to be in a certain mood. I have to be in a certain mood to listen to this album. But don't get me wrong. It's proggy. It's got good vocals and everything. Everything you would expect from Genesis. It's just a little bit long and hard to follow along on sometimes. But anyway, it's still a must. So Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, number 10. Okay. Moving right along here. Okay, this next one. When I first heard it, I'm like, wow. Kind of reminded me of when I first heard Pink Floyd's album, Piper at the Gates of Dawn. It sounds like Genesis, you hear Peter's vocals, but at the same time, it doesn't. Well, to me, it doesn't really hit at what they're going to become. Anyway, released March 7th, 1969 on Decca Records, produced by Jonathan King. From Genesis to Revelation. I mean, look at those guys on that cover. And you got, let's see here if I got Peter Gabriel, Mike Rutherford, Tony Banks, Anthony Phillips, and John Silver. I mean, a bunch of kids, just barely out of high school or wherever their upper class or school is. But, I mean, songs are good. They're well put together. But the thing is there's not a lot of drumming on it. There's not a lot of electric guitar. There's a lot of acoustic guitar. There's a lot of piano. So, and of course, Peter. It's Peter. He stands out. I mean, you could pick him out of a crowd of 1,000. His voice is unique. Of course, some say Phil Collins' voice is pretty close to the same, and it is. Phil's voice is just a little bit higher in pitch than Peter's. But anyway, they weren't really happy with this. Jonathan King, he took liberties with the music, added strings and layers of strings and stuff. And when the band heard it, they weren't really happy with it. First, they said they were appalled. That's not what they wanted. But, maybe here and there you could hear sounds of what was to come. But overall, it's really not that apparent. You have to really listen to the songs. Again, like I said, it reminds me of Piper at the Gates of Dawn, where Piper was done a little bit better. This one's kind of, when you listen to it, I picture them in a dark room, and Tony playing the piano, and Anthony Phillips is playing the acoustic guitar. Then Mike, you really don't hear much bass, maybe a little bit, but it's hard to pick out. Then Jonathan Silver and Chris Stewart, who played on 2 tracks on this album. I think he played on Silent Sun and That's Me. This one also includes some bonus tracks. They're really good. But it's like they're in this dark room and just feeling their way along with Jonathan King giving them directions, and then after they're done, Jonathan King taking the tape and going into another room that's brightly lit with this big band, and he's, okay, guys, hit it, and they add their parts. So, but still, it's a must-have for any Genesis fan. So check it out. Even though it's not that great a production, it's still good music. But it's one I have to be in a certain mood for. But anyway, number 9, Genesis of Revelation. Okay, moving right along here. All right, this one is the last album that I bought of Genesis. Once I get into a band, I generally like to collect all their albums, or in this case, up to a certain point. Anyway, this album, it's another great album. It's just one that I don't reach for very often. Anyway, released December 17th, 1976 on Charisma Records. Last album was Steve Hackett, Wind and Wuthering. Another strong production from Phil, Steve, Mike, and Tony. I mean, good stuff on here. It's just not one I reach for that often. 11th Earl of Mar, One on the Vine, good. Your Own Special Way, Walk Gorilla, All in a Mouse's Night, Blood on the Rooftops, Unquiet Slumber for the Sleepers, in that quiet earth, Afterglow. Another good, strong, proggy album, though you get a hint of what's to come in their poppy area. You can say they're trying to feel their way from Peter's area, Peter's time, not Peter's area, but Peter's time to something different. So they're kind of in between here. So anyway, Wind of Wuthering, numbers. No, we meant. I screwed up. I screwed up. Yes. That's not number 8. Number 8 is completely different from that one. This is what happens when you don't have physical copies sometimes. Yeah. Okay, number 8 is, and then there were 3. Yeah. So, duh. Did you know that? Yeah. Released in March 1978 on Charisma Records. Of course, this involved Phil Collins, Tony Banks, and Mike Rutherford. Steve Hackett had gone by this time. First time I heard this album, I really didn't like it all that well, but I've listened to it recently, and it's still good. It's like I said, they're feeling their way. They're trying to discover new things. Down and Out's good. Undertow, Ballad of Big, Snowbound, Burning Ropes, Deep in the Mother Lode, Many Too Many, Scenes from a Night's Dreams, great. Say It's All Right, Joe, Lady Lies, Follow You, Follow Me. Still solid songwriting. This, like I said, the more I listen to this, it'll probably grow onto me more. It just, to me, it's lacking because Steve Hackett's not there. Phil's still playing drums on this. But of course, when they go out on tour, he's not playing drums 100% of the time. He's more singing more. But, it just hints at what's to come. More hint. They're using more synthesizers and stuff. Anyway, still a good solid outing by him. I probably will end up getting that on CD. So, yeah, moving right along now. Okay, number 7 is another album that I only heard once until just recently, and that is Duke, which was released March 1980. This is the last one before the poppy era started with Abacab. Listened to this again the other day at work, and I was like, oh, this is actually a great album. So right now it's at number 7 with me. It'll probably maybe grow, could move higher. Anyway, Behind the Lines starts out fantastic. I mean, there was a kind of a lull between then there were 3 and this one, and you could tell that from then there were 3, they're kind of feeling the after effects of Steve leaving. They're kind of wondering, what are we going to do here? They came out with a decent album. This one, from the get-go, you can tell that they've been re-energized. From what I understand, Phil had been going through a divorce. He sounds re-energized on the drumming here. But from the get-go, behind the lines, it's proggy beginning. I mean, it's just fantastic. The drum lines and the keyboards and stuff, it's offset, Duchess, excuse me. Fantastic. Guide vocal, Man of Our Times, Misunderstanding. Of course, everybody knows Misunderstanding. This is when they start getting into their poppy area. Heathay's Turn It On Again, another radio tune. Alone Tonight, Cul-de-sac, Please Don't Ask. There's Duke's Travels and Duke's End, fantastic. But you can tell this is the point where they go from prog to pop. It really becomes more apparent on Abacab, and then by their self-titled album, it's really in full force. Like I said, don't get me wrong. What comes after is good. It just doesn't hit it with me. This does to a certain point. Like I said, it'll eventually grow onto me. But anyway, right now, Duke at number 7. So, moving right along. Okay. Number 6. That's where Wind and Weathering belong. Like I was saying, great album. But like I said, they're feeling their way along. They're still stuck in the Peter Gabriel era here, even though Peter's not here. They're still saying, well, okay, Peter's gone, but we still want to do this. Or do we? Because I think that Steve leaving after this album tour, I think finally pushed them to the point where, well, okay, we got to decide other things. So anyway, Wind and Wuthering, number 6. That brings us to number 7, or number 5. Number 5. Released October 1970 on Charisma Records. Their first major album. Their last with Anthony Phillips, and the only one with drummer John Mayhew. Of course, talking about Trespass. Strong second effort. I mean, of course, this comes on coming after from Genesis to Revelation. A whole lot, it's like they went from a group of kids who wanted to do pop songs or poppy prog songs to prog. How much Peter had to do with that, I have no idea, but I'm sure Tony had something to do with it too. And Mike. Anyway, Strong. Looking for Someone, really great. White Mountain, fantastic. Visions of Angels, Stagnation, Dusk and the Knife, fantastic. Pull this out here if I can. Trying to get these booklets out of these things when they're really hardly booklet there. It's really just well put together. Vast improvement over their initial effort. But sadly, Anthony Phillips, he leaves because he'd come down with stage fright and bronchial pneumonia brought on by it. I mean, from what I've read, what I've heard, he was in a bad shape. But it kind of makes you wonder if he had stayed in the band and maybe eventually, got Phil Collins, what would have happened? What would have became of Genesis? But something we'll never know. So anyway, that's my number 5. We're at top 5 now. Moving right along. All right. Now this album, when I first got it, I was kind of unsure because it was the first album that I got that did not have Peter on it. It's the first one that features Phil, not only on the drums, but as a lead vocalist. Of course, I'm talking about A Trick of the Tail. I need to hold him over here where you can see it. Need a little artwork here. But that's another thing I've noticed about Genesis, aside from their first album and maybe some of the later stuff, they don't put themselves out there on the covers like a lot of the bands did back then. They had more artist renditions of albums, In fact, all these are artist renditions of scenes and stuff. But anyway, first effort without Peter. This one's also got a DVD in it. Can't remember if I've seen that, but anyway, great songs. But at the same time, they're writing without Peter, but you can tell that they're still locked in that era. Dance on the Volcano, Entangled, Squonk, Madman Moon, Robbery, Assault, and Battery. I've seen that video. It's great. Ripples, A Trick of the Tail, Los Endos. Fantastic tunes. It's also got the Genesis concert on here, reissued interviews, of course the videos for Robbery, Assault, and Battery, Ripples, and A Trick of the Tail. And White Rock's premiere program, 1977. I can't remember what that was. But anyway, great effort after losing Peter. I'm sure these guys were like scared, maybe not scared, but nervous. Peter's not here anymore. What are we going to do? But they think they made the right choice. Phil, his voice and Peter's voice were so close to being the same. Like Phil, he's got a little bit higher tone. Peter, lower tone. They complemented each other when they sang together. So it was only natural. Though Phil is or was a fantastic drummer. Poor guy can't drum anymore. Barely walk around. Sit down on stage. That's what a lot of people didn't like. Thought him so walking around, being his energetic self like he used to be, sitting there on a stage in a chair singing. So, but he is getting up there in years. But it's good to see he's still out, trying to make an effort to do something instead of sitting at home vegetating. But anyway, Number 4, Trick of the Tail. Okay. Okay, number 3. Now, from listening to people like Pete Pardo on his channel, this next album is pretty revered. A lot of people, it's their number 1. But yeah, it's a fantastic album. Released November 1971 on Charisma Records. First to feature Phil Collins and Steve Hackett. Of course, I'm talking about Nursery Crime. Fantastic follow-up to Trespass. I mean, they got in the door with their first album. Opened the door. Got through the door in the second one. Now they're fully in the room with this one. They've basically found the sound that they want. Look at that artwork. Some people don't like it. I think it's fantastic. I mean, it's just... Let's open this up. Over here right here, you got the Giant Hogweed, which is one of the songs on here. The little artsy things in here. Of course, there's their whole discography right there. There's the Giant Hogweed. One of my favorites. But that's the thing about Genesis back then. Aside from their first album, that you didn't see pictures of them very much, if at all. Whoop. Uh-oh. My CD cover is coming off here. Oh dear. That's the only drawback about these plastic ones. If you drop them, they break too easy. But anyway, Music Box, fantastic opener for Absent Friends, fantastic little ditty. The Return of the Giant Hogweed, one of my favorites. Seven Stones, fantastic. Harold the Barrel, Harlequin, and the Fountain of Selmatics. Selmatics. I guess that's how you pronounce it. Apologies if it's not. But, fantastic debut with Phil and Steve. Steve brings so much to this album. Like I said, it's too bad. Anthony Phillips, fantastic guitar player. It's too bad he couldn't stay on, but Steve was a great pick right there. But yeah, Mystery Crime, number 3. And number 2. And as usual, when I'm trying to figure out what's going to go where and how, and number 1 and number 2, either one of these could flip with the other. I mean, they could flip. Number 2 could number 1, number 1 to number 2. Tough time, because both these albums are fantastic. But this is how they're going to be today. A week from now, it could change. If I ever did this again, definitely going to probably change. Who knows? Duke may come up. Or then there were 3 or one of the others. But anyway, released October 1973 on Charisma Records. Number 2 is Selling England by the Pound. And here, Peter, Mike, Steve, Phil, and Tony, they're full powers. is cranking out fantastic prog rock. Dancing with the moonlit night. You know, fantastic opening song. Kinds of a hint back to Trespass on that one. I know what you like in your wardrobe. First of fifth. More Fool Me, The Battle of Empty Forest, After the Ordeal, The Cinema Show, Isles of Plenty. You know, fantastic prog rock. Back in the day, well, even today, you know, well, especially back then, prog rock wasn't really a big thing, but when well done, people would flock to it. Anyway, there's not much to see here on this one. Yeah, until the next one, they don't have very much artwork on this one. But that doesn't diminish the fact that this is a great album. I always like that cover. I mean, you got there's a lawnmower. I'm a lawnmower man. There's on the bench. There's a lawnmower. Imagine having to push that around the yard. I did when I was young. But anyway, number 2, Selling England by the Pound. Okay, number 1. Number 1. If you're a Genesis fan, you know what number 1 is. That's not the self-titled album. It's not Invisible Touch. So get those out of your mind, or those later ones. Now I'm talking about an album released on October 6, 1972 on Charisma Records. Their longest song, a 23 or almost 23-minute epic. I'm talking about Foxtrot. From what I understand, on this tour, Peter upped the game plan for the band. That's when he came out. Surprised the heck out of everybody by one of his wife's dresses. Came out with a fox head. You see it right there. Of course, he also came out with some bat wings on his head and a cape for the opening song, which was Watchers in the Sky on that tour. Timetable, Get 'Em Out by Friday, great tune. Can Utility and the Coastliners, fantastic. Horizons, great little tune. And of course, the epic Supper's Ready. It don't get any better than this with them. Because like I said, it could trade places with Selling England by the Pound, but right now, I just love this album. It's proggy, you know, it's got fantastic drumming by Phil, great guitar work by Steve and Mike, bass, you know, fantastic keyboards. Of course, Tony is just one of the top keyboardists out there. I mean, he knows his craft. I mean, this is the thing a lot of people don't understand about earlier rock bands like Genesis and ELO and, you know, bands like that. A lot of them were classically trained in piano and guitars. And when you're classically trained, you've got more to fall onto, you know, far more to use, crafting and honing your talent, your product, and it shows. Which is why later on, when they went into a more poppy area, I could not understand why they wanted that direction. I mean, don't get me wrong; they're great. You know, it's great songs. You know, solid production, but it just, to me, this is Genesis. This is the way they should have kept going. Sure, you tried different things, but I just have a feeling that they hadn't got the more poppy route. They probably would have ended up being more beloved now than than hated, and that's what I get. Don't get me wrong; they do have their fan base still. There are those people that grew up with those songs from the '80s, and I think some came out in the early '90s, but they don't know stuff like this. And a lot of people listen to this, and that's not the Genesis that I like. And when you've heard this stuff and the later stuff, you have more of a appreciation for this. And of course, that's just me. We like what we like. We go routes that we want to go. Sometimes we get dragged there. Sometimes we go willingly. But anyway, there you have it. Genesis. Or the first 10 albums. Little recap. First Foxtrot. Selling in England by the pound. Number 2. Number 3, Nursery Crime. Number 4, Trick of the Tail. Number 5, Trespass. Number 6, Wind and Wuthering. Number 7, Duke. 8, and then there were 3, 9, From Genesis to Revelation, and 10, Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. Check them all out. You don't know Genesis very well except for the later stuff, the more recent stuff. Go check this out. It only take a little bit of your time. Go to YouTube Music, whatever. Check it out. You may discover that, hey, this is actually great stuff, but give it a chance. Like I said before, that's what I'm trying to encourage here is by doing this is get information to people out there that don't know or are unsure, but keep this music alive. I mean, that from the late 60s onward, I mean, it's just, there's so much fantastic music out there to be ignored, too much of it to be ignored. But anyway, next week, after Christmas, next weekend's Christmas. God, this year's almost over. Where's it gone? I miss summer, but the summer was so dang hot. I don't know where you were, but here in northern Utah, it was, I love summer. I hate winter. It just right now, this room is so cold because this house is solid brick. It's not insulated well. Because what do you expect from a house that was built in the 1920s? But this past summer was so every day, 90 degrees. Wasn't triple digits. I don't think we got very many triple digits, but without a change here and there, without rain, it just became old. But no matter how many times I wanted to complain, I thought, no, I would think on how bad winter, how bad think of the cold that's going to come. And I think about that and I thought, well, yeah, it's maybe hot, but I don't want the cold. It just gets into my very being. I mean, it just drags you down. But anyway, next Monday will be we're going to be doing the albums of ELO. And this past week, I was supposed to do some things. I was supposed to do David Gilmour on this past Wednesday, and other things I never got around to it because I was trying to finish doing the final corrections on my book. That's hopefully going to be out either next week or the week after. That took a lot of time, and by the time I got all that done, I was burned out, and I needed a little bit of doing nothing. But anyway, ELO next week, next Sunday or Monday. We're going to be talking to, then we're going to hopefully Wednesday, and we're going to talk about bands that I got into this year, and maybe some shows. I want to do movies and TV shows, but it's just hard. Music I can get into more lately than movies, because the way things are going on in the world, it's hard to do. But anyway, I'd like to see what your rankings are of Genesis, your top picks, whatever. Hear your comments. Please leave them down below. And until next time, have a nice day, and thanks for joining me. We'll see you.